Schumer today laying out the Democrats' position on President-elect Trump's pick for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who was making his debut as the first Trump nominee to go through a Senate confirmation hearing today. He doesn't need any Democratic votes, though, to be confirmed. And that is an important point to make here today, even with all the back and forth we saw in the hearing room. The response, certainly to Hegseth, was far more positive on the other side of the aisle, and he can get through with just Republicans. Here with us now, though, to talk about all of this are two people just, I guess, on opposing sides of this issue. Tiffany Smiley is a veterans advocate, former triage nurse, knows Hegseth personally, supports him and supports his nomination. And Christopher Goldsmith also joins us, Iraq War veteran, opposed to Hegseth, right, Christopher? So let me start with you as to the why. We heard a lot from Democrats today. What's your biggest issue with Hegseth?
Yeah, so I don't know Hegseth personally, but we've kind of been in the same circles for nearly 2 decades. I remember back when Pete Hegseth was rabidly pro-war. That was when I was part of the anti-war movement, and he and his friends were calling people like us traitors. What my concern with Pete Hegseth is that the man has no experience that qualifies him to run a large company, let alone the largest department on the face of the earth. 3 million people work for the Department of the Defense, and he has been spending the last 2 decades denigrating roughly half of them. Anyone who he considers to be a diversity hire, which would be any person of color or any woman or any member of the LGBTQ community, he thinks that their service is somehow not worthy of appreciation.
So it's a qualifications issue for you. I know we've heard personal issues. You're saying it's not qualified. Okay, I've heard that. Tiffany, I want you to respond. Let me play a clip from Senator Joni Ernst first that speaks to some of the issues. You know, Christopher brought up women. That came up a lot today, women in combat. But that's only part of the reason you'd want to hear from Senator Ernst. The other is that she's a very important vote, or could be. Here's part of what she said.
As Secretary of Defense, will you support women continuing to have the opportunity to serve in combat roles?
Senator, first of all, thank you for your service, as we discussed extensively as well.
It's my privilege.
And my answer is yes, exactly the way that you caveated it. Yes, women will have access to ground combat roles, given the standards remain high, and we'll have a review to ensure the standards have not been eroded.
So what I thought was interesting, Tiffany, about that particular exchange and the entire exchange between Ernst and Hegseth is there's probably maybe 5 or 6 senators that are question marks and, in terms of Republicans. Ernst is thought to be one of them, but she was not confrontational today at all. So what would you say about that, and how would you respond to Christopher's issues with Pete's qualifications?
Yes, and I think, Pete did very well today. He answered Senator Ernst's questions. Pete is looking for standards and to put, the DOD, Department of Defense has one job, and that is readiness and lethality and protection of the American people. And so he's simply just saying that's what we will focus on. Yes, women are allowed. Can they meet the standard? Bring them in. We need Americans from all walks of life. Our recruiting is down. That is a problem given the dumpster fire that Joe Biden has left President Trump with. We need a strong fighting lethal force.
But what makes Pete qualified specifically to be Secretary of Defense from his own experience? Why is he qualified, Tiffany?
Well, the only qualification is that you are a civilian, so he checks that block. But look, he has served our country with honor. He has gone to Princeton, Harvard. He's smart. He's articulate. He has personally helped me break through the bureaucracy. Our family essentially has fought 2 wars. My husband fought in Iraq and was blinded by a suicide car bomb. And then I had to fight for him here with the VA and the Department of Defense. I had to take on the Department of Defense to make sure that my husband had resources and access to care. Not only that, I had to fight for his life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I know Pete will put war fighters first. He will make sure that the force is ready, that recruitment numbers are up. That has to be the focus. And if the Democrats' litmus test is if you've run a company of 3 million people, that's absurd. Because not very many people in America that have done that. Oh. And if we want to look back at the previous SecDef, who Democrats obviously believed was extremely qualified and fit for the job, he went AWOL. He oversaw the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, where we lost 13 service members, a dark stain on our country. I could keep going.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you could. I do want to get at least one more clip in because I think it's important, too, because you're talking about not only women in combat, but somebody who knows a thing or two about that and the issues that she had with Hegseth today. We'll play a clip from Senator Tammy Duckworth on qualifications, and then we'll go back to Christopher. And here's what Senator Duckworth had to say with Pete.
This hearing now seems to be a hearing about whether or not women are qualified to serve in combat and not about whether or not you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person.
He, of course, says he is. That gives you a chance, Christopher, to respond to what Tiffany just said.
Yeah, I love the just arguments that are thrown out there. Well, no one's run an organization of 3 million before. No one is saying that. No one says that you need to run a company of 3 million employees before you're qualified to be SecDef. That is not a real argument. But Republicans have been coming out and making up these fake arguments, these straw men. What I am saying is that the man has never had any sort of experience that has qualified him to run a large company, let alone the largest department in the United States. What I think is abundantly clear is that he was picked because of the way he looks and because he's a communicator. He's a brilliant, brilliant communicator. He got that job because the Koch brothers, some rich billionaires, wanted to dismantle the VA. And they found a good communicator who was good looking enough for Fox News to get on it and denigrate the service of the patriots at the Department of Veterans Affairs.
It was one of the Democratic
I have gotten
senators
exclusively all of my health care from the Department of Veterans Affairs since I returned home from the Army. And they have saved my life time after time after time. I understand that not every patriot has gotten the care that they have deserved.
Right.
But Pete Hegseth has done a massive disservice by pretending as if the VA doesn't work for anybody. Well, the VA saved my life and has saved the lives of countless veterans.
I know, and you said, Tiffany, there's been different experiences. You've had different experiences there. I get that. And part of what Christopher just brought up, though, did come up in the hearings today, this idea that, one of the Democratic senators, I believe, said they would have supported Pete if he was up for being spokesperson at the Pentagon. I don't think that's a Senate-confirmed position, but the point was that that's more along the lines of what he is supposedly, in this person's view, and it sounds like in Christopher's view, qualified for. How would you respond?
Yeah, well, look, there was a mandate on November 5th from the American people that Donald Trump led.
He barely won.
And very clearly won the popular vote. And the American people want disruptors versus the establishment. We have seen what the establishment does. It gets us in wars. It doesn't know how to end wars. It doesn't know how to take care of our war fighters when they return. It also doesn't know how to uphold and withstand and keep a lethal fighting force with strong recruitment. So when you look at that, Pete Hegseth has served our country. He's well educated. He's clearly fit for the job. He can clearly communicate, not only communicate, but he knows how to lead. He's done it in combat. He's had bullets whiz past his head. He's seen his friends die. He understands the implications of war. Also, I think what is refreshing is that he is not bought and paid for. He doesn't have special interests coming after him. He, doesn't have lobbyists coming after him. He's not coming off of the board of Raytheon. He is there to serve the best interest of America and our incoming president of the United States. And that is refreshing. That is the mandate that was set down on November 5th from the American people.
I'm going to get back to the fire coverage in a moment now, but I do appreciate both of your points of view and talking through the issue here. And we'll see where the Senate comes down. I guess the only thing I would say, I thought Senator Ernst kind of not going easy, but not also being confrontational was significant today, whatever you think of Hegseth. So we'll see if that is a big story or not in terms of confirmation. Right. All right. Christopher, thank you very much. Thanks for your service.